Hi friends, my name is Ludmil and I am DevRel contributor at Arnean DevHub. And I would like to welcome you to the 8 Tools community call. If you haven't attended one yet, those are informal sessions where we share updates, discuss, and present tooling projects from the ecosystem. If you want to get involved, join our Telegram group or or visit our community page at neardevhub.org. You can see the recordings of all previous sessions on DevHub's YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking for various projects for Near and have a little bit of discussions around tooling. I'm joined today by Josh Ford, Zahid, Vlad, Gregory, and Everett, which all pretty much will bring some. I'll put that on the video. So today I'm joined by Josh Ford, Zahid, Vlad, Everett, and Gregory, where we'll be having the discussions over each and everyone's work. So I would like to start with some updates from Zahid. He'll be talking, I believe, on Jutsu AI and Bento, maybe. So Zahid, if you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite. So last few months, we have been kind of working on making Web3 development as simple as possible, as simple as kind of drag and drop. Mostly we focused on the front-end part. You probably know the Web IDE that we have for BOSS, and we simplified that to kind of make it more easier. But I will start with our kind of a no-code AI-generated front-end tool. It's called Bento. Let me share my screen. I don't have access to. I cannot access to share. The screen button is kind of dimmed.
By the way, yeah, same here.
Very strange. Give me 1 second.
Wow.
I will fix it. There we go.
So this is Bento. Bento is, if you go to the main website, it is basically from prompt to UI, and then you can build a kind of the landing page for any of your dApp just using prompt. I don't see messages. I want to share. Sorry, is it the question for me, or if you have a question, just ask the question. Okay, so the way you can start a project is from two places. One is you can start from a template, or you can take a screenshot of a website and then you can kind of build from there. So let's say we want to start from scratch. We want to build a MySwap, some sort of, let's say, Uniswap clone. Remember, if we are building the landing page, create a DeFi. We finance crypto. I don't know if you can say that, but, and then what it will do is, like you can see behind the scene, it will kind of generate different section of your website. So it created this plan where it knows like it need to create this different section, and it is using LLM to kind of generate the user interface for you. So you can see it bring up that UI. And then now you can also go back and kind of let's make it's too dark. So now you can change a different section, and then you can also kind of if I want to change this this portion using AI, so I can just click this magic button, so it will go and kind of regenerate this section. So this is kind of a one part where you can kind of add and update any section, or you can remove, you can move sections. So those are like a typical drag and drop thing you can do. You can change manually from any of the property from here. And then the next feature is so that's kind of the first feature that you can do. And then more interesting part is you can just click deploy on near, and then it generate a boss component for. So this is a if you look inside, this is a real React on-chain component that behind the scene was generated for you. And this is mobile optimized and all the other things. So the code is generated. Now you can connect your wallet and you can deploy on Near protocol. So from your idea to create a website and deploying as a boss component in few minutes. So that's kind of the one of the main important thing that you can do with Bento. One of the ideal customer profile is people who have idea or in a hackathon or in a real settings, like where they're building a component, but they also want to kind of create the website. So that's kind of the idea. So other part of it is kind of creating a project from a screenshot. So you can go to basically any website. Anyone have any favorite website that they? Let's go to this this website, for example. And now it can be any website really. Now if we take a screenshot and then just upload that screenshot. So now if I upload, then it will be able, now it's going through the screenshot and kind of generating a UI from that screenshot. Give it a few seconds. But you can imagine like the idea is you can have a starting point and then from a screenshot, and then from there you can keep updating. So this is the UI generated from that screenshot, which is not bad. So now when you have this one, now you can also bring more stuff. So like let's hide this thing. So here you have this generation where you can kind of add more stuff. So maybe if they don't have a price section, but let's say price page. Any of the price page will do. Okay. So the idea is if I take a screenshot, now let's say I want to add this price section to my website here. So if I go and take this one, let's see what kind of things it generates. So the main idea of this composability that we learn from kind of a React on chain, kind of giving user, non-technical user, the ability to kind of either imagine now you are adding it using. So now you can see like now you have a pricing section, right? So and you can kind of compose. There will be a few other things in the future. Imagine like in this page, if you want to add a boss component, so you will be able to add a React on chain or this from this 20,000 component that we have. You will be able to kind of mix and match into this section. So that's kind of the Bento, and then of course you can share with other people. So you and then you will be able to deploy on chain. So that's the kind of the main Bentho. So if you want to give it a try, just go to bentho.jutsu.ai. So it is for mostly focusing on non-technical developer who want to build a proof of concept really quickly. Then one more thing I want to show in jutsu.ai. So now you will find it's like a very minimal amount of thing, like a we went through and talked with people and then kind of simplified the experience. So and added this storage section. So what happened when you build a component? A lot of time you use different assets, like it could be a CSS, it could be a image that you want to use. Now you have a place where you can upload a CSS file or image, and then you can consistently use those assets into your components. So it make it really easy to manage. Typically, we use different tool to upload a file in IPFS and then kind of use them in in our components. So that should make it much easier. So we are using this one a lot. It's like and behind the scene we are using near IPFS or near FS, and then search is the same. Yeah, so like it's more simplified. It should be more easier and intuitive for hackers or builders who want to build a component. So yeah, give it a try, Bentho. If you want to just generate your UI using just prompt or screenshot, this is for you. And if you are interested in writing code, then app.jutsu.ai. Thank you.
Thanks, Zahid. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One of them would be which model is Bento using underneath? And do you see it for the future, or like, do you see it that it could be made so that it interacts with a certain content, but not necessarily with the React on Chain components, which is basically what Jutsu has been focused on? So, do you see it as a future, as in its future, to be able to somehow bridge the gap of like interacting with the API JS, and like between the blockchain and the website itself? Or like, do you see it as a static tool that it will be helping out with for people to bring their concepts into life?
Okay, so the first question is like what kind of model it use. So we tried different models, like Llama 3 and Pi 2, but like OpenAI is kind of the GPT-4 is kind of the winner. So when it comes to kind of generating solid code, still it's the winner. So that's underneath. It's today using GPT-4o. And then basically every time there is a model update, it will get better and better. So that's kind of the concept. In terms of going beyond just front-end generation, we tried it. Yeah, it is possible. So now the question is like how much interest there are. So one of the pivot that we are making right now. So we build a bunch of code generator for like a smart contract generator internally for Solidity, for Rust. We tried different, and for front end. Now we also build some other AI agent that do like a lot of interesting automation for Twitters and other stuff for internal usage. And gradually we are moving to a place where we want to build a kind of a platform where you can use different AI apps. So we want to build a more like a super app for AI app. Let's say near AI engineer. So if you want to use it, so we want to be that host in the future. But that's like a far future. Did I answer your question? Like a two question? Okay.
Yeah, I was just sidetracking a bit while I was listening to you because, yeah, and this is a little bit on the sidetrack, but you mentioned that you have tried like code generations for smart contract, both for Solidity, for Rust-based blockchains, and I would like to just briefly get what is your overview of like how good do you think we are from writing smart contracts using those like code generation tools or like LLMs? I assume that being given the code base, maybe Solidity would fit a little bit faster. I mean, like, because different blockchains for like Rust-based smart contracts, they use different styling. But like, how far do you think we are from having a solid tool, no pun intended, that would generate like those smart contracts for us?
How far? I think.
Like, do you think it's stable? Like, do you think that it's
it is. It is like my answer will be like a little bit different. Is like when all this hype will be gone. After that, like it will be some great tools. So right now it's a lot of hype. So that's why I'm kind of staying away from hype. So in terms of generation, I think it's like 60% probably it can generate properly. But there are a lot of new technique where you can write a code. It's called agentic architecture. So where one agent write your code, then another agent critique your code, and then another agent test your code, run unit test. So if you can build this chain of agents and kind of build an agentic architecture, you can go probably 80-90% accurate code. So it is doable. The other big breakthrough, I would say, like the context window. So now you can kind of, if you use Gemini Pro, it's like I think 3 million context. So what that means is like you can send like a 10 different example or 20 different full code example of your, let's say, NFT or minting a token, all these things, and then your code generator can generate code based on the style that you send. So there are a lot of different useful technique you can use, like a one-shot learning, few-shot learning, that can make your code more accurate. But right now, like the problem is the perception, like whether it's going to work. Imagine like as a human, we probably make more mistake, like until like a few people, like or after 2 years, like probably you make less mistake. This kind of tool, I believe, will be great for onboarding new developers.
Yeah, because like I'm interested into the topic, but I'm also like a little bit on the sides of the hype in the general space, not on near related. So since you're one of the persons that has been like dealing with those models and like you've been in this for a while, that's why like I was curious to know your opinion about it. So yeah, thank you very much for sharing. We are joined also by two contributors that are currently having a proposal, I believe, into the infrastructure committee. That's for the runtime verification, if I'm not mistaken. So, Everett, would you like to join us and share a little bit about your project, what you're building, and like how can we discuss and like see what are you up to generally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Everett Hildenbrandt. I'm the CTO at Runtime Verification. Gregory, who's our lead of DevRel, is also on the call, but I think he's only able to listen in right now. So it'll mostly be me talking. So I'll just give a quick background on what runtime verification is first. But runtime verification, we've been around since 2010. Ever since then, we've done software quality assurance broadly, is what I would say. That includes testing tools, fuzzing tools, formal verification tools, parsers, interpreters, all sorts of different tooling for developers to help them with their own quality assurance, basically. In 2017, 2018-ish, we got involved in the cryptocurrency spaces. That was mostly in Ethereum at first, but then into other chains as well. We developed a lot of tooling for blockchain application developers in that time, including a lot of formal verification tooling, which is formal verification is this process of taking code turning it into a mathematical model, and then proving that the mathematical model always behaves correctly, right? So that's kind of the highest level of assurance you can reach for a piece of code. So any questions about that before I go on, or no? Okay. The way our tooling works is it's language agnostic, right? So the same verification tool that we have works for Solidity and also works for WebAssembly and works for RISC-V and works for Python, for example. We also have like the C semantics and the Java semantics, so we can do formal verification for other, non-Web3 languages as well, but here that's not the focus. And so what that means is with a little bit of upfront work for each new ecosystem, we can basically bring the entire suite of our tooling to that ecosystem, wholesale. So all of the tools that we have for Ethereum, we could bring to Near, for example. We brought to other chains like, Tezos back when it was more popular. And yeah, thank you. And Algorand in the past as well, and Cardano. And so other chains have been involved as well. I actually really appreciate the presentation you just gave on Jutsu as well, because that's definitely a trend that we're seeing, is that people are using AI to generate code more. And there's kind of this question of like, is the code safe, right? For some applications, it's fine. If there's a question of code safety, it's fine, like to run into a bug in production, fix the bug fixes in the next day, you're good, right? Like that's fine. But for crypto applications, usually there's quite a bit of scrutiny on it from people who are looking to take advantage of these bugs. And so then money can be lost in a very real way. And that's something that formal verification can help with, actually, because formal verification is focused on writing the specification of what the code is supposed to do, not on writing the code, and then checking that the code actually implements that specification. So we can specification perhaps that goes to both the AI generative model and goes to the formal verification team, right? And then the AI generative model generates the code, and the formal verification team checks that the code actually implements the correct behavior in that case. So, or at least a subset of the correct behavior. So maybe you're not getting the full behavior you want, but at least you're staying within some safe region of operation. So that's kind of a cool application of formal verification to the AI world that we've been envisioning. And then, a big component of the Near ecosystem, it seems, is this chain abstraction and interop with lots of different chains. That involves bridges, that involves oracles, right? That involves like these restaking mechanisms that takes security, shared security from one chain and puts it on another chain, for example. So all of these mechanisms increase your attack surface, right? They increase the ways that your protocol can be compromised, right? And so once again, that just increases the need for software quality assurance in general. The standard way in crypto that people have approached software quality assurance since I've been involved in 2017 has been audits, right? And we've done our fair share of audits in the past. Audits are painful. They're not scalable. Auditors don't like doing audits, right? Like it's expensive, which is why auditors do it, right? We don't like doing audits. And they don't scale. They're not an investment in your security as much as a checkbox that you're making at the end of your development cycle. And while I wouldn't argue that that's not needed right now, but there's better ways, and formal verification is a better way, because once you have the formal verification artifacts, you can enable that on your CI and just keep running it every time. So it's more of an investment at that point. You invest in formal verification. It assists you in the development cycle because it doesn't need to be at the end. You can start it right at the beginning. And then it continues to pay off as you keep using it into the future. So that's kind of we can keep doing audits, right? But it's frustrating to see this thing that is not scalable for the ecosystem be the kind of the gold standard for security, right? Like it'd be better if there were other techniques that were used. And it also better if we move that security in-house to the teams. Like the teams themselves should take charge of some of their own security. So yeah, I saw you had a question.
That's what you're saying is perfectly true. I am sure that a lot of people are struggling with security in general, and also like going to the audits to the different companies, finding which one is creditable, and then even like if you give to the same code base to different auditors, they would find totally different code, totally different things. Which brings me to the point is that you mentioned that there is, well, what you envision is writing a spec that basically could be compared to the code base that the user has provided, if I understand it correctly. So how do you think, like, how can we ensure, isn't this a single point of failure? For example, how can we guarantee that the spec that we have provided is indeed safe enough for people to be comparing it to? Because I see there's like a big, especially on hackathons, a lot of people are just copy pasting code from like generative tools, which is working halfway there. But indeed, as you mentioned, this proposes the issue of losing assets, because we humans are ignoring a lot of things and we just want to move quickly, and so we just copy paste stuff, cross fingers it works, and I don't get like my awesome unicorn NFT stolen. So how do we guarantee, or like how can we ensure that the spec that we are providing is correct and it would be correct at all times?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, there's a bunch of different techniques, right? There's no like silver bullet here, right? But the first technique is read it and review it, right? Like go to the team that you're writing the spec with and review it. And in higher quality assurance fields like aerospace and automotive, they follow a different development strategy than in the field like Web3. In Web3, you see more like the agile development strategy, which is like move fast and break things and try to get there. And in those, they start with the specification and then they refine that to requirements and properties and then to tests and then the implementation. And it's kind of like we call this V or waterfall technique. And then they go back up and make sure that all of the requirements and the spec were met at the end. All right. So we're by bringing in the spec writing process to the Web3 ecosystem, it almost just changes the mindset of the team, right? The team is thinking from a high level, okay, what is this protocol supposed to do, right? Because oftentimes people just immediately start writing code, or they have some loose English description, they put it into a generative model to give them some sort of loose architecture of the code, and then they start hacking away on it, right? Like maybe it should do this, maybe it should do that. They don't have a clear picture in their head of what is the protocol supposed to do. And so imagine you're going to modify some part of the code to extend it and add a new feature or something, and you have this clear image of what it's supposed to do, then you're going to take that into account as you're writing your code. Whereas if you don't have this clear image, you're just going to say, well, what about this case? I think it should be this, and I think it should be that. And you kind of like are guessing a little bit more about what the code should do. So by bringing this spec writing process into the developers, in front of the developers, that's the key, right? That's the first key. It changes the mindset of the developers. The second key is, how do you know that your spec is complete, right? Like there's tools that can measure these things, right? We can measure basically like, first, is the code actually exercising the entirety of the spec? And second, is the spec missing any cases, right? So that would be something like a deadlock analysis or a liveness analysis of the spec itself. That usually for Web3 protocols is probably overkill, that level of analysis, and the human level review of the spec is probably enough. And then I have one thing to specs, but I want to give you a chance to ask your question. I'll do.
Is it hit?
You're muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. So my question is more like spec, like is it like as a developer, I have to write it, or is it your tool is writing it? And then a lot of time, you already mentioned like a Web3, or even like in general, other than government and aerospace, and it's not a waterfall. It's always kind of agile method. So like so the reason audit works is like you spend 6 months or 1 year building, hacking something, and then you go and give it to an auditor, and then they try to break it. But are you saying like I have to learn formal specification language and then kind of specify, write the specification for my NFT minting code?
So So the specification probably should be written by the team, right? Because you don't, like, if you go to something generative to write it, then, you know, you're just asking it to make something up for you. You're not like actually implementing some protocol that solves some problem, right? So you're trying to solve a problem, you should write the specification towards solving that problem. But specification is a broad word, right? Like, it can mean just an English requirements document, right? That alone makes a massive change in the way that development happens at that point, because then you are talking to your team, there's some confusion about what to implement at that point, and you say, hey, let's go to the requirements document. You pull up the requirements document, you see, okay, it says here this and this and this. Oh, that informs the change that we're trying to make at this point, or the requirements document needs to change. But to make sure that everyone is kind of in sync mentally about what the goal is to have that requirements document. And then the other end of the spectrum in specification is like mechanized formal mathematical specifications that the computer can read, right? So you start with something that the humans can read and agree on, right? And then you go to something that the computer can read. And that's what our tools facilitate, is writing specifications that the computer can read and actually check that the code implements that specification correctly. And that, right now, the barrier to entry for these types of tools for computer readable specifications for formal verification is pretty high. Like you have to usually learn some other language, some other kind of mathematically oriented language to be able to write those down. And that's something we've been changing, actually. We have this tool called Control, which I can maybe I can share my screen, or I can pull up a link to it and send it here, or.
Yeah, please share a screen.
Okay.
Where do you see like people using your tool in Web3 projects? Like, do you have projects that are actively using your project, and what kind of vulnerability that I think a lot of security auditor, they also do formal verification, right?
Most of them don't. Most of them don't. We would say us and maybe one or two other teams take doing formal verification as part of the audit process pretty seriously. Which, you know, you can look at the the RECT leaderboard and see how often like our names and the names of those firms show up. And I think it's a pretty clear trend in the efficacy of it. So this is the Control tool, and it is used actively by several teams in the space. And largely it's been used by later stage teams, because early stage teams have this urgency to get to the market. And so they have, you know, they want to just get the code done, get some sort of cheap audit, and then get it deployed. But teams that are deploying V2 or V3 know that investing in their security early makes everything cheaper and smoother long term, right? And so that's why we usually are working with teams that are deploying a V2, or they're deploying a new product, or they're trying to launch on a new chain or something like that, right? Like they have had some success already with their first launch. This is a GIF demonstrating the thing, but the key thing I want to show here is the UX. The UX that we've been innovating here is the key, right? Because formal verification has like this very high barrier to entry due to the UX, and we're solving that problem, right? So I'll just go to a control example. You guys have heard of this tool in the Ethereum ecosystem called Foundry or Forge? Yeah. So it gives you this access to property tests, and the cool thing about property tests is that they can take in parameters here like this, right? You see these parameters, and normally what a tool like Foundry is doing is it's doing fuzzing over these parameters and trying different execution paths to try to find bugs. And we can just take that same property test and do symbolic execution with it instead, and explore all the possible paths, but in a finite memory footprint. And that's really the key there. So we take these Foundry property tests and we do symbolic execution of them using Control directly on that same test. And then it comes back with, indeed, it works for every single input, or it comes back with, it doesn't work, and here's an example of why. Because of the symbolic nature of these property tests, you want something a little more flexible than what fuzzing gives you, because this goes back to the coverage thing. You're saying, how do you know your spec covers all the inputs? Well, it doesn't at first if you're doing fuzzing. And so we introduce special, what are called cheat codes, which allow you to broaden the state space that you're exploring with the symbolic exploration. So this is the Control tool. and it's enabled a really cool tool called Symbolic, which is kind of, I think, first of its kind in Ethereum and maybe in any programming language, where you have a debugger that enables you to do symbolic exploration and breakpoints and stepping through the code line by line symbolically, fully. So we do the symbolic exploration using the control tool, and then Symbolic goes through and lets you kind of step through and pick different points in the program execution and inspect the state symbolically, right? So this tool's in an open beta trial right now, and you can sign up for it's an open beta, it's not private, you can just sign up. And this is a tool that, once again, the way our tooling works, it's all language agnostic. Once we have the base model needed for the new ecosystem, all the tooling comes with it, right? So that's kind of the story, I guess, the long story. And then what I'm here to, this proposal is about the Casmer tool, right? So Casmer is our formal verification and property testing for WebAssembly, for Rust compiled to WebAssembly specifically. And so that's what we'd like to target at the Near ecosystem. And so we're asking for funding to develop basically the Near specific components needed to go into this tool stack and make it available as a free and open source tool that Near developers can use on their smart contracts. And there's Gregory has linked the Visual Studio Code Marketplace extension for Symbolic, which you can install on your own. And then the idea with Casmer is we'll make it specific to Near. We'll make all that work with the Near ecosystem, and then we'll provide support. We have Telegram channels and Discord groups for teams that want to take control of their own security, that want to bring that security in-house, start to learn to do the formal verification process, write their own Rust property tests, and incorporate it into their CI along the way. So that's kind of the whole spiel. So
have you tried it on any what's the current status of support for Near, and have you tried it on any?
There's no support for Near at the moment. So what we support is Rust to WebAssembly, which is a broad category, but there's several blockchains that have the Rust to WebAssembly toolchain, and the one that we do support is Multiverse X, and we're building out support for Stellar, for the Soroban ecosystem. We're also building out support for Polkadot right now. So we want to build out support for Near as well. And the target contract that we set up in the proposal, as we want to get to where we can handle this contract, is the Burrowland DEX, right? And we've outlined specifically the Near features that need to be implemented for the Burrowland DEX to be able to do execution and symbolic execution using the Casmer tool. And that's what we'll focus on developing for this engagement, basically.
Why did you choose because as far as the screen sharing that you did, there were several tools that you mentioned. Why are you starting off with Casmer? And is the integration that you are going to do for Casmer, if your proposal gets accepted, is this going to allow for the rest of your tool stack to actually be integrating with Near, or is it going to be strictly Casmer?
It will be Casmer. This proposal is specifically for Casmer, which will enable the Rust property, the symbolic execution-based Rust property testing. We can, in a follow-on proposal that I think would be smaller, also bring over Symbolic, but this is the bulk of the initial work needed for our whole tool stack to work. And this will bring in Symbolic execution-based verification, but also fuzzing and a couple other small tools we have. But the verification is the main tool there. So.
Yeah, amazing. Actually, it sounds like this would be an ultimate additive to, for example, SourceScan, which is currently on the works, which verifies, makes reproducible builds and verifies the code. So having some such tools for testing and having verifiable code would be a amazing step forward towards security in general. So
let me actually share one more tool that we make for Ethereum that maybe is relevant for what you just mentioned.
Let's see, question from Vlad first, and then we can continue.
No, go ahead to show it first, and then
So this is the ERCX tool. So like we were talking about, the verification side is kind of the fully manual approach to validating the safety of your smart contracts, and this is the fully automated approach, right? And so here, if you go to this page, we have basically an API you can call for any contract on the Ethereum blockchain, and it will give you a kind of pretty detailed security report about that contract. So first, it'll classify the type of token it is, and then give you detailed security information. We have teams that are integrating this tool into, for example, their lending and borrowing platform. There's lending and borrowing aggregator platforms or DEXs or stuff. These contracts that have to go out and integrate other contracts into their platform. Well, if they want to provide some sort of security for their users, this process can be very cumbersome. They have to review each of them independently. Do they get an audit? Does the source code look reasonable? Does the team look reasonable? Right? This can automate a lot of that onboarding process, basically. Just, yep, it's an ERC20, it's compliant, onboard it, right? So this is kind of the other end of the spectrum in terms of the fully automated side, but bringing our tooling, the promise is like, we build this small core to support the thing, and then all the other tools are much easier to build on top of it.
Great work. What to say? Like, you've done a lot of work. So yeah,
You've been busy. Yeah.
Yeah, what I wanted to add is basically it would be a great addition to what is currently also in progress for a little while already. And basically there are two initiatives. One that Ludmil just mentioned, SourceScan, which is currently working on reproducible builds, being mass adopted basically in your ecosystem, because currently most of the people compile it on CI usually, and just basically that is their level of confidence that it's kind of reproducible and we have the same environment, but it's not ideal, and nobody else the only proof you have is basically the execution during the CI. Ideally, we want to have reproducible environment, so Carganeer CLI builds will have a built-in support for like Docker images, where the whole environment will be fixed for the compilation time. That will produce the same WASM binary, no matter which platform you use to run the command. And the second initiative is, I just received a message today morning actually that they are very close to completion, is the code coverage, WASM-COV being adjusted to support Near. So they will, I'm spoiling it here, but they will announce it next week, the full support, and we will definitely integrate it into all the testing suite. And then with all those tools, we aim to increase the confidence of in the code that we are running, especially when it comes to the financial critical apps or other security critical apps. It's a must. And before we relied on Rust being our safeguard as a language, but we definitely want to have more tools at our disposal, not just relying on low-level security, but also on business logic bugs needs to be caught.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, that's our mission, is just to provide tools to developers. We really firmly believe in open source. We believe in bringing the security in-house and empowering developers to do their own security. That's why we applied for funding to develop these tools, so that we don't have to, have the tool be completely closed source, basically. And then, of course, we take, if teams want to contract us to help them work on their security, we'll do that, of course, as well. So
nice.
Amazing. Pretty well. We are all happy to have you around and actually discuss and bring those things into attention. Because I think chatting and all of this is one thing, but actually having to talk to the actual person, that's amazing. And I'm sure that a lot of people are having similar concerns. They want to, but they want to get involved somehow or get these tools. But unless we talk and bring it to the attention that indeed those tools might exist, what it's needed is like more effort, more talking about assets to some extent, because every piece of work takes time, and this is our most expensive asset, of course.
Yeah.
But such kind of tools are necessary, not only for the Near ecosystem, but for the greater good for everyone in the blockchain space. So, and it seems that you have put a lot of work into it so far. So, looking forward to see how your proposal is going to proceed. And yeah, while you're here, I like speaking on security as well. They have been some questions around Telegram groups for a while now, for like the past week. There are a few people that asked if Near has user-facing multi-sig projects. They have given some examples for like Safe or something like that, and I would ask you, what tools, that made me think actually, what tools are we missing? What do you think would be a nice tool to have on Near?
I think I don't want to speak on behalf of Everett, but I don't think that's the right question.
No, this is not Everett. No, this is to all of you. Like,
yeah.
No, it's very, because
I can take it, but I want to hear other opinions if we have any first.
Owen, you've been rocking your mustache in the top left corner. What tool would you like to see on Near?
Too tired to answer that question. Don't pick on me.
I think, like, and I was wondering why I personally haven't seen, like, in terms, like, in context of the question that we had on Telegram, is like, okay, maybe a tool that deploys a multi-sig contract to your account, and then you have to verify it, or you have to get the confirmations for the rest of the attendees of the multi-sig to actually execute a transaction or transfer assets or like make an action.
Well, there are actually 3 contracts implementations out there that are very widely used. One I'm sure you know is Sputnik DAO, which was part of the Astro DAO initially. But let's cover the next ones. There was the very first one, which was called Multisig, and then there was Multisig for Me2. Those are still in the wild. They are used by the foundation and some other folks. But the deficiencies of those are that they rely on the feature of Near having multiple keys, but then you cannot tell like who is actually holding the key. You just need to have 2 keys to sign the transaction to go forward. So basically, you first submit a proposal, and then the second transaction is just acting on the proposal, like voting, but then the limitation of that approach is that it's very hard to. You basically have multiple people having the access to one account, and you can tell apart who actually is executing it, which is sometimes it's good in terms of like anonymity. You still can like understand who actually signed the transaction when, but other than that, it doesn't leak the user name or anything like that. But the Sputnik DAO is much more powerful, and this is the direction to go, and this is what the infrastructure committee expressed as the best option right now to go with, is to continue building the UIs for Sputnik DAO. So we shouldn't really invest time into editing it. It was pretty well thought initially. It is a very powerful contract, and it was audited. It was battle tested for years. So the decision was that, okay, let's keep it as is. And the problem is the UI. Surprisingly, people cannot really operate complex apps, especially when it's involved, complex proposal to execute on chain through the Sputnik DAO. It becomes a very nested thingy to put into it. So we need to simplify it. And then there was an RFP from request for proposals from infrastructure committee regarding the treasury management tool built on top of the Sputnik DAO.
Yeah, in the context of the question that we had on Telegram, they were like, are there any like user facing products? So is there an UI? Exactly what you brought up. It's the hard part. So we can figure out so many complex tasks and projects and whatever. CSS and UI is something that we still haven't figured out in general in programming. But yeah, so the user was actually asking for like, is there a user facing project? So basically, is there a front end for this? And I was searching, like I was thinking about it. It's like, yeah, I haven't seen that many. So contribution or project opportunities, anyone write it down and contribute and build it. Speaking for contribution opportunities, so there are plenty of those around. So first of all, there are plenty of contributions that need to be done to the docs. Join that. If you want to open your first proposals, like first PRs, docs is an amazing place to contribute to. Near Faucet, it's like we are all familiar with the Faucet concepts in general, and it has come to my attention that the smart contracts for it haven't been updated for quite some time now. So in the links below, there would be the link to the Near testnet Faucet contract. So if you want to contribute to that, bring it to SDK 5 or contribute to the front end, just hit them up, make a PR. I would gladly review it. Speaking of which, what you have missed for the past nearly month, or at least some of the things that you have missed, is that there were updates to the Create Near app, to the Near JSON RPC client, Rust. Near CLI RS has a fancy loading animation over there. And speaking for the Near CLI, and actually quite a few more will be on the links below. All of this, if you have missed all this and much, much more, I would gladly suggest you to join the DevHub newsletter, and you would receive like a weekly update of all that is happening into the developer ecosystem of Near. But speaking on the CLI, this has been a going issue for a while. I assume most of you already know that we have two CLIs, which are currently on the final stages, I believe, that are going to be merged. So no longer we will have two types of different commands to execute the same thing that is interacting with our favorite blockchain. So tests are already like being written, and soon we will have a single CLI to interact with. So this would be amazing. So more on that, just follow the newsletter or join the dev channel or the tooling channel you can also find below. So if you want to contribute, hit those two groups, ask if there is some help needed around, and we'll definitely hook you up. I see that there are two hands raised up. Owen?
I just wanted to touch on the multi-sig. I think aren't the foundation working on the front end for multi-sig? I think from the core contracts, either one or two. Yeah.
And there is one.
Yeah. Can anyone answer me? What is the difference between multi-sig and multi-sig 2? Does anyone know the answer to that? Because I had a look and I couldn't figure it out without diving right in.
Well, maybe that's something that property-based testing can answer your question. No, but like some questions would be below. Check them out. If you see any dramatic differences that needs to be brought up to attention, let us know. And yeah, there's a hit raised hand.
Yeah, so like two things. One is Faucet probably is we can add a Faucet so that people can make a really good UI, and then I can help. Like we can help with that task if you need. But another thing, like I always want to ask is like a next quarter, if from this community, if there is one or two feature that you think will be really helpful for you or even new people onboarding, that you don't have to, like, if you can tell me now, that will be wonderful. But like, we can add like a 1 or 2 feature that for the community. So we have a roadmap, but like a next quarter, I'll submit our update. But for next quarter, we can have like a 1 or 2 community request. So faucet, if it is important, we can. I don't know, like if
I just added it for contribution opportunities. So if somebody wants to learn a little bit about Near or like testnet faucet, it's a nice project. It's out there. I can help you out and guide you around it. So this is the reason that I added it. Personally, outside of the scope of tooling, to be honest, or maybe not so much outside of the scope, I personally think helping people to be onboarded like a tool, like maybe learn management solution like Agora app that we have for JavaScript contracts, or some kind of learning management tool, or maybe kind of Rust links for Near or something like that. Personally, to me, like a learning tool would be something amazing to have, I think. So that's my personal opinion. And that's why I'm also interested into tooling projects. Hence, I'm here, and so that's why I keep asking people like, "Hey, people, like, what do you miss?" So it's not only in Discord, the people on Telegram, Discord. So if there's something that you're missing, bring it up and let's see what we can do about it. So personally, I would love to see like more coding challenges or like tools in terms of education. That's my 2 cents. I don't know. Anyone else? No. Okay. So, for joining the 8 Tools community call. So, if you want to get involved, join the Near Tools community group. If you want to get in touch in any of the today's presenters and many more, do join it as well. Also, there is the Near Dev group where we can talk and like all things development on Near. Don't forget to subscribe to the Near DevHub newsletter to receive weekly updates. Tomorrow, as every Thursday, there is the DevHub Live where Joe is presenting for live for around an hour. And to understand and to see all our community calendar and events, just join the DevHub community calendars. You'll get informed. And yeah, if you want to present your project, suggest discussion topics, hit us up, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.